frankly speaking, there's not somebody they can understand. There's certain things. This is one industry where learning is always ongoing. You will never be able to say that, okay, now after 5 years I've learned everything. After 10 years, people who have
Right.
been working for 40 years, they also said, there are something that you're still learning.
Because there will be new rules, regulations, it will be coming up and you'll have to read it.
Also, there are so many aspects to that, so many technical elements to that, so many operational elements to that, you cannot cover anything in totality ever. So this industry will never bore you in what sense you can say, while people may say that, okay, after some point your work is really monotonous because you've been working on the same line of things, but that doesn't happen. Somehow, at least 5 years, it hasn't happened with me that I have felt monotonous with my work.
Hello everyone, welcome to new episode of LegalWiki. Today I'm delighted and thrilled to have Ms. Vanshika Chandra ma'am on my channel. She is currently serving as an Assistant Manager Legal at AirAsia India Private Limited, now AIX Connect Private Limited, for over 5 years. She brings extensive expertise and a diverse skill set to her role. With a law degree from a campus law center, Delhi University, and over 8 years of post-qualification experience, she has successfully navigated both the practice of law and the dynamic world of aviation. Her responsibilities encompass managing commercial and litigation matters, ensuring legal compliance, and contributing to the company's operations pan-India. To mention, she is a first-generation lawyer who was recently nominated as one of the top 10 women lawyers in a corporate sector by ALB India Law Awards 2023, conducted by Thomson Reuters. And today, she will be sharing her invaluable insights into the legal aspects of the aviation sector. A very warm welcome to you, Vanshika ma'am. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Hi, Subi. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been a pleasure to be in this meeting and connect with the LegalWiki and share my experiences with the budding lawyers. I am looking forward to help the fraternity in whatever sense that I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. So before we dive into our discussion, I would like to thank you for accepting my invitation and taking time out of your busy schedule. I hope our conversation will be highly beneficial for those aspiring to enter the aviation sector, as it remains a relatively unexplored field. With this, let's begin. So starting with, can you give us overview of how the aviation sector operates? What is its regulatory system? Who are the key players? And what role do lawyers play in this industry?
Okay, that's quite a extensive and exhaustive question to ask. But okay, I'll take it in word by word. I mean, so starting with what does aviation industry includes and which are the regulatory players here. And as you correctly said, it's quite a technically sound and very heavily regulated industry. So aviation industry comes under the purview of Ministry of Civil Aviation. And Ministry of Civil Aviation has created a body called Directorate General of Civil Aviation, which is called DGCA India. Okay. And Indian aviation is from a regulatory perspective. DGCA lays down the rules, the civil aviation cars and regulations for an airline to operate on a daily basis. So in an aviation industry, you will see 2-3 very most important verticals that aviation industry has. One is the engineering sector, which covers the aircraft or engine maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So that is the technical nature of the aviation industry. Other than this, the flight operations, which means your pilots and the crew, that is the operational leg of the aviation industry. And thirdly, the safety, because we as an airline are operating or transporting more than millions of people. So safety is a very, very important element of the aviation industry.
Correct.
So I would say these are the three main features or the sectors where aviation industry highly works upon: engineering, flight operations, and safety.
Okay. So moving on, how do lawyers play in this industry? What is their role?
Right. So lawyers. Okay. To begin with, so any corporate, be it not just aviation, be it any corporate within in the country right now, all of them have legal, and so legal in corporates have a very the general role, which would include managing litigation, managing contracts, managing compliance-related parts, then assisting the organization with day-to-day legal opinions, and basically mostly about the compliance sector. In aviation, while all of these things are anyway becomes a part of the contracts are there, then there is litigation. Our litigation is mostly restricted to the consumer litigation. Being the hospitality industry, we have to respond. We have a lot of issues related to service deficiencies, issues, and issues like that. So all of those are anyway becomes a part of the aviation industry, has also those common issues. But what I personally feel, I cannot talk about corporates, but in aviation, what I have seen is that it is an amalgamation of almost all, not all, I would say, very predominantly a lot of sectors which you will find, independently, you will find an amalgamation of all of those sectors in aviation in some manner or the other. You will, as an aviation industry or as an airline company, we have to work with, our operations are heavily relying on the software system. So we have software, so we have IT related services, then we have engineering, as it is explained, where we look forward of our aircraft and engine fleet that we have. We regularly maintain it. We make sure that they are properly repaired, and then there is overhaul services. Then we have, as an airline, we also offer food on board. So we have catering related services as well. Then we also provide some ancillary services like some t-shirts or some merchandise of the of our company. So that includes aviation. So fast moving goods also there are there. Then safety, as I said, safety related services are there, security is there, HR related issues are there. So there are so many things to work upon in this industry that you will slowly or steadily, you will get exposed to almost, I would say, 50 to 60% of what we are looking into, right now in the corporate sectors. You will have some or the other way, you will get a chance to explore or venture into those things and learn in a lot of sense. Plus, the contracts here that we do are very specific industry contracts. You have aircraft leasing contract, you have engine leasing contract, you have purchase agreement. We do not have purchase agreements, but other airlines tend to go, and other airlines have aircraft purchase agreements. So they are like heavily complex and highly high priced asset transaction. So you'll basically get an experience in all of those fields, but of course, all of those things will take time. You take a lot of time to experience all of those sectors. So naturally, you have to give in some time and experiences those.
So basically, the role of lawyers come into the picture when it comes to the compliance thing. So for all these things which you have specified. Yes, like there are different kinds of a thing which the aircrafts are supposed to do. For all this thing, we make sure that everything is in a compliance manner or in a regulated manner as per the law.
Correct.
Yes, so
correct. Plus contracts, plus litigation.
Okay. So moving on, I would like to know, how did you gain exposure of this aviation sector, considering this to be not commonly explored by the lawyers, sir?
Right. So frankly speaking, it wasn't planned. It was not something that I thought that I will be doing. I joined AirAsia in 2017, and I graduated from my law school in 2014. So basically, I was still a fresher, 2 or 3 years of experience, and I was still finding my feet. Where do I belong? Is it litigation? Is it corporate? And if in corporate, then what sort of corporate? Because prior to aviation, I was associated with the education industry for a very short period of time. So, and other minor these are Bharti I was working with a law firm which was closely working with Airtel and Bharti telephones or something. So we that way I had some exposure towards certain sort of corporate education industries there. Then there is telecommunication industries there, and minor industries here and there, but nothing really seemed excited to me. And then finally, when I joined aviation in 2017, initial few years were struck very challenging, because seriously, as you said, we do not know much about aviation. I had not studied about an aircraft act, or what was all that about. So I had come with zero knowledge there.
And
But
I don't think so.
as
Any college teach that also. I don't think so. We do have
yeah,
a
that's actually a sad part that in India I haven't come across much colleges that provide aviation law or aircraft rules
exactly.
as a subject, which they should be. It's quite interesting, but and it's very exhaustive as well. So I remember DU law had a subject, aircraft law, rules and aircraft act, but sadly there was no faculty at that point. So while I wanted to take it as a subject as one of my electives, we never got a faculty to teach that. So I had to shift to some other subject, maybe IPR or something. So I remember DU did have it as a subject at least. But otherwise, I have not seen in India many colleges. We have tons of law colleges, but I have not come across much of the colleges that provide aviation law as subject, which is why it's slightly difficult because we do not know. When we have not read about it, we wouldn't know about this industry much. Same thing happened with me. So I would say it was sheer luck that it happened, and then I think the rest is just history.
But that's interesting, right?
That has I would say I just completely in love with this industry, the way
So you have
it
been into this
functions.
sector for a while. So obviously that is interesting for you. That's the reason. Yes. So
Precisely.
yeah. So moving on. As now you are an assistant manager legal at AirAsia India, can you provide an overview of your role? And also, how do your current role and responsibilities have changed from being senior legal executive or a legal executive?
Okay, so one thing about aviation industry is the legal teams here are very lean teams. So I would say it depends on a lot of factors. How will your team will increase? That depends on the number of aircraft that an airline has. Currently, AirAsia has about 28 aircraft. And we have a system, the HR has a system by which they highlight that, okay, basis this aircraft, this is the number of people that should be there in the organization to ensure that, okay, things move seamlessly without any issues. So AirAsia has always been a lean team. And when I joined, I don't think our team has ever increased from 2 people. So we have always been a team of 2 at any given point of time. So when I joined the company as an executive, and I was a fresher. So you can expect that as fresher, my role was initially restricted to handling consumer litigation, small contracts like hotel contracts, cab-related services, or admin-related services, but mostly, or responding to legal notices from consumers or any HR-related issue, HR notices that would come. So it was restricted, or very simple contracts, I would say, like which wouldn't require a lot of technical knowledge or a technical background, or a lot of even negotiation skills wouldn't be required for those sort of agreements, small marketing agreements. So initially when I joined, I was handling those sort of things. Then I moved on and then became senior legal executive. Of course, the moment I got this promotion, I was given more responsibility. Means in terms of that, I was given more complex documents to work on, more high value contracts, which would probably the financial repercussions of that would reach up to crores or 50 lakhs or something like that. So basically, what really changes in all of these designations is that the nature of risk and risk that as an individual or as a lawyer that I have to take, that increases. So, or the nature of responsibility that is given to me is given on a more senior level. So they had to take ownership of those more technical or complex documents that I'm working on in comparison to what I was earlier working, maybe just consumer litigation and hotel contracts. So these things then take a backseat, and you work upon and you delve into those technical documents, like managing your aircraft leases, engine leases, and getting into contracts with MROs. These contracts are all governed under the English laws, and they are extremely heavily negotiated contracts because most of your service providers would be high profile MROs sitting in international, working out of a national jurisdiction. And mostly they are they are mostly, there's a lot of, not, I'm forgetting the word, there's a lot of, they are the ones who are governing the rules and regulation, because they are the service provider and they are the king in their line. So if, let's say, we are talking about an aircraft lessor, the person who owns the aircraft, who is leasing it to us, they are the owner of the aircraft. So they are the ones who are dictating the terms there. And same happens with the aircraft or engine maintenance people or MRO. So India, there are just two MROs. We have Airworks, JMR, and AISF. So when
MROs,
you have a
explain.
maintenance, repair, and overhaul service providers, MRO. So when you have, small market, then you know that the players are small. I mean, not players are not small. Players are big, but they are the only people. So you know that the chances of negotiation is going to be very restricted because they are going to put down their terms. So that way you have to get into discussions with them, and basically the whole idea is to give you more exposure toward these more complex transactions that you enter into later on, which would require more technical knowledge, experience in the industry, and understanding of the operations, how an airline works, what will be the impact of certain clauses not included in the agreement, what will be the repercussion on the airlines, especially the financial impact on the airlines. So that is how your roles is diversified.
Okay. So one more thing I wanted to ask. So this is all this compliance work or the discussion work is done by the AirAsia legal team only, or do you guys hire law firms also for their inputs or negotiation part?
Depending upon the nature of transaction that it is, compliance part, we take care of it. I mean, so there is a division called Corporate Affairs Division who manages and who's in close, who takes care of the licensing with the DGCA and government authorities. Each department, and there is safety departments and safety related compliances which they manage. Then you have ops related services. Ops have their own DGCA spokesperson, and they ensure that they manage those discussions and they liaise with them. Similarly, engineering has their own spok in DGCA. So they all have to liaise eventually with DGCA, or you have for security services, you have PCAS, or basically these two. So each department takes care of the compliances which is given. So there is something called a civil aviation regulation, CAR in short form.
Yeah.
And CAR basically lays down the rules and regulation that an airline and each division of the airline has to follow. So safety has to follow certain guidelines, operations and pilots have to follow certain guidelines, security has to follow certain guidelines. So they ensure those. We help them in the interpretation of those CARs wherever is needed, or if there's something that is exclusively required from a legal perspective, then we take care of it. Then there is sorry, I am forgetting the question. So
involvement of the law firm, yeah.
Involvement of the law firm. So law firms, we usually include law firms for our litigation matters, because as an organization and as a corporate lawyer, I cannot go to the court, so we need law firms for the consumer litigation or any HR related issues or any other matter, which mostly HR and consumer litigation. Then when we have these international transactions for aircraft or engine or something like this, then we touch base with the law firms which have exposure towards the UK law or English laws, because all of these agreements are governed under the English laws. So while mostly English law and Indian laws are based on the same common laws, but there are certain features which are slightly different from how we interpret it in India, and how are they impact under the English law. So for those things, we work closely with the international law firms. But that is, I'm talking about specifically from AirAsia, but there are other law firms which, of course, work very closely with the Indian law firms as well for a lot of other transactions, depending upon the volume of work as well. Yeah. So, but yes, there are some really good law firms. There is McKinney, there is AVP, there is JLS is there. So there are some really good law firms who have aviation practice and who can be great helpful for the students looking for aviation related work exposure in the future.
So moving on, as you're having an extensive experience in this aviation sector, so what type of cases do you handle? and what are the specific areas of law involved here? So basically, I just want to know, can you share some notable case laws you have handled as an aviation lawyer?
Okay. So as I just explained, most of our industry-related litigation, if I talk about, would be restricted to the consumer-related matters, which is you have a flight delay, there is flight cancellation, baggage losses, baggage damages, sometimes there is a gate change and a person misses his flight, there is last moment flight rescheduling, or there is overboarding related issues. So most of the litigation in this industry specific, I would say, would be restricted to this particular part, which is consumer related. And again, how we have to deal with the consumer related issues is also something that DGC has laid down. So
Yes.
there is something called a passenger charter, where DGC has clearly specified that if you delay a flight and you have not informed the passenger in a certain given time, or the passenger misses the flight, you have, as from it, because of the Airlines Act, the airline has to pay them certain amount of money. Or if there is a baggage damage case or there is a baggage loss case, there is a restriction of up to 20,000 rupees in INR for any domestic passenger. These are all cases for the domestic passenger, which means within the geographical jurisdiction of India.
Yes.
The moment you move outside Indian jurisdiction, means the moment you are operating as an airline, when you're operating outside India, you are governed by certain multiple sort of conventions. You have Montreal Conventions, you have Warsaw Conventions, and those conventions laid down the liability of the airline with respect to any of these given issues. Currently, AirAsia India is a domestic airline, so we have luckily not been handling much of international related issues. But soon, hopefully, we will be venturing into that area as soon as we start our international operations. So that's about it. And then you have regular HR issues. There is employee related issues, which is not much, luckily, for AirAsia. And talking about notable, I wouldn't remember anything notable because these are very generic consumer litigations. And I'm always representing the company.
Any consumer which
So
have bothered you a lot by sending email or legal notices, anything?
Didn't happen. That is very this the matter is really small, but how it all turned out is very funny. And I think the matter is still under litigation, so I won't give much information. But what happened was that there was this particular person from a legal background itself.
Okay.
He was traveling and the flight was cancelled. We gave him the compensation as per the DGCA car, but he was not satisfied and he wanted us to make payment for a higher amount because as a corporate we can make bigger payments and it wouldn't impact us. So we never reached a settlement with him, and now the matter is under litigation. But the whole thing is that as a corporate, people have very wrong understanding that as a corporates are making money, so under the consumer matters, you can just ask them to make payments of about 50,000, 60,000, a lakh, 2 lakhs, doesn't matter. These are really small amount. While that is not the case with the aviation industry. I mean, if anybody would notice it, it is one of the most highly loss-making industry right now. So the only one or two airlines that are making profit is basically Indigo, or recently Vistara has entered into that. So, but frankly speaking, this is a heavily loss-making company. So that whole idea of corporates being able to give out huge chunk of money in terms of compensation doesn't really work. So as an airline, we get to hear this a lot of times, especially from people who are influential, that it's okay, you're a corporate, you can give out high compensation, so things like that has happened.
Okay, yeah. So moving on, how does AirAsia India collaborate with government agencies and regulatory bodies to address legal matters and ensure compliance?
Right. So as I explained, each department, depending on the nature of responsibility that they have their own SPOC, and they deal with the DGC accordingly. And then we have a sector department called Corporate Affairs, who does it sometimes when a particular department is not needed, then we route it through the Corporate Affairs system. And then they are the ones who reach out to DGCA and their representative, and they speak to them. So that's how licensing usually happens. Legal directly doesn't get into licensing part or compliance part. directly with you. So we are always assisting with one or the other department with respect to how should they comply with it. So we are there is a dotted line in the compliance part with respect to the aviation, unless there is something that is specifically something that is a need. For example, the unruly passenger committee that was recently constituted, that was something that had come under DGCA had issued a card for that, but we were the ones who had actively worked on the reports and creating a committee and everything like that. So
Okay. So also, can you share with us what are the common legal issues currently faced by the aviation companies? And also, what does the future hold for the aviation sector? Because we all know that they're running into loss, and as you mentioned also. And what are the main challenges this aviation sector is facing right now?
okay, so major challenges. Speaking about the major challenges, so the major challenges that we, as an organization or as an industry,
I
would
think as an
speak.
industry, I would like to know, because one thing I know, like
Okay.
recently I was reading one article related to high taxes. So airfare is basically high because of the higher taxes which they have to pay. And again, they're loss-making company also. So anything else which basically they're facing
So
problems?
airfare, yeah, so airfare is higher because of the high value of the aviation turbine fuel, the fuel ATF that we use for operating an aircraft. The value of that is extremely high, plus the taxes that is imposed on it are even more high. So the operational cost of the airline or operating a flight becomes extremely, it's tremendous for an airline. So the most biggest challenge that the airline really sees currently is the capex value. The capex, the capital expenditure in this industry is huge with respect to, because with respect to the, for example, you can't operate without, you don't have a unless you don't have an aircraft. An aircraft lease rental, let's say, even for a fresh new aircraft, we operate an Airbus narrow body aircraft, but depending upon the kind of aircraft it is, if it's a Boeing aircraft, narrow body, wide body, different the rents are decided on a different basis. A lot of technical and the vintage of the fleet. So if I talk about the value of an lease rental for one aircraft, I am paying some, let's say for a new aircraft, I'm paying some $250,000 per month for one aircraft. That is my rental. And then I have to pay it for the entire duration of the lease. And these leases run into long periods, 5 years, 10 years. And then one aircraft is not sufficient. So we have, the fleet runs into 50, 60, hundreds of aircraft. But if they are leased, then we are paying huge amount of price for that. If we are buying it, then also it's huge amount of capex amount that we are spending. So the biggest challenge that aviation industry currently sees is the high capital expenditure that we have to put into this organization in order to be operational. And sadly, because plus we are highly governed, regulated industry, so we have to ensure that the ATF issues anyway there, plus your airport authorities, then the ones who manage the airports, be it DIAL, be it BIAL, or be it any other government airport authority, they have their own taxes for airport management. So a person has to pay that. Plus over and above, we have to pay. We have our operation now. So for operationals and for the purpose of managing the ticket fare, there's extremely cutthroat competition also right now, because in the same sector 4 other airlines are operating, and each of them are given trying to give competitive prices for that. So the competition is high despite having a small less companies right now. We all know that in terms of the sectors that we are providing, all of them want to, for example, all of us want to operate on Delhi Bangalore. This is one of the most common sector, because people want to travel, corporates travel on this,
Delhi, Bangalore,
students
Mumbai.
travel on this. No Delhi Bangalore Mumbai. So now making sure that you get competitive prices for that and yet be able to fly and operate a flight, those are very difficult decisions to make. And how you are working on those pricing is also very extremely difficult. You have to make sure that you stay afloat. You make money on certain sectors while you're also catering to the passenger needs. So these decisions make it slightly, not slightly, these are the challenges that as an airline or as the industry is currently facing. But as they all say that the aviation industry, Indian aviation industry has a lot of scope in future, and it is going to expand like anything in another 20, 30 years. So while we have all of these challenges in place, the government is also working right now, ensuring that the airlines get a chance to make money. They get more international sectors to operate, and making sure that for them also the journey gets slightly more seamless and easy, where they stay afloat. Because right now, as we just saw, the Go Air filed for insolvency during COVID. Jet Airways had to see the same thing. A few years ago, a few years in the past, it was Kingfisher. So while airlines, while working amazingly, and then all of a sudden, because of some or the other, because there are a lot of third-party dependencies on this industry. For example, if you would see the Go Air issue, it was because their engines, they could not get the engines in time from their engine service provider. And that is a very relevant reason, because unless we don't have operational engines, we'll not be able to operate a flight. And if you're not operating a flight, your aircraft is on the land, it's on the ground, basically just parked. You have still to pay the lease rentals for that.
That's heavy.
So you have heavy outflow, but literally zero inflow. So an airline cannot operate in that sense in a very long run. So these things are, which is why now in government has come up with this IFC for the in Gujarat, and they are promoting that instead of taking aircraft leases from international lessors should now go into the start operating from Gujarat, and then they lease in India, so that you have taxation benefits, you pay lesser amount. All of those things are in plan, but how will they pan out? That's a different thing to say. But government is taking action, and hopefully we will see that these challenges, while they're going to stay for some time, hopefully there is some other benefits that we see.
So basically, there are certain loopholes which needs to be considered or regulated.
They are definitely.
Okay, so moving on to my few last questions. So what is the hiring process like in AirAsia India?
Okay, hiring process for the legal team we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, so there is nothing, no hard and fast process as such. It's basically we look for one of the few shortlisting criteria would be we prefer relevant experience, but it's not mandatory, of course. But yes, what is mandatory is some sort of corporate understanding and corporate exposures, because freshers is something that we are small teams, so we prefer that we get slightly more experienced people on board. But normal processes, shortlisting by the HR basis the education qualification as well as the relevant exposure that you have in the past. You'll have to go through an HR round of interview, then you go through legal round of interview. There will be 2 rounds for legal, maybe one round for legal, depending how the company is decided, maybe by the HOD, or maybe one by HR and HOD. It could be in any manner. And then finally you go for an interview with the senior management, as in somebody from the CFO level or the CEO level. And then there could also be a written assignment as well before we go for the second round of interview. That depends on the again the level for which you're being interviewed. If you're being interviewed for an AM or a manager level, then of course there would be a written assignment. If you're, let's say, being interviewed for an executive or senior executive level, then that may not be there, because the nature of responsibilities that will be given to you would be slightly the same that I had just explained some time back. So that you will still get a chance of learning on board. Training would anyway be given when you're joining as an executive or a senior executive. But when you're joining as an AM or manager, you're expected to do a certain level of understanding you're expected to have. So that may give you, okay, you have to go through some written assessment also. So that depends completely on the
One can directly apply through HR, and then the process goes.
You can, yes, of course. Okay. You can do it through LinkedIn. You can do it through. There is a career page on our website. You can do it by that.
Thank you so much. So moving on to my last question, can you share insights or advice for aspiring aviation lawyers or individuals interested in this legal aspects of aviation industry, and what are the things they should work on or focus on?
Focus. Okay. What are I think the thing that they need to focus is, okay, that's a difficult question,
So
basically.
before I was actually I'm asking
Okay.
this question because before taking this interview, before schedule this interview, I've actually asked to my few followers that whom they would like to have. So they were like very keen towards aviation lawyer. They wanted to know about aviation lawyer. So that's the reason I wanted to know, okay, what are the things they should focus on if they are interested in this aviation sector.
So see, naturally, I would say it is always better to know what aviation law is about. Okay, and not just about the law in the sense, okay, you read the Aircraft Act or you read the rules. That is one part of it. Okay? Reading about the industry and how the industry operates, that is more important. Laws can be learned. Okay, that is something that you learn during your job as well. I learned it during my job. It's not something that I had known. But and I also, anyway, I learned how the industry operates during my job with AirAsia. It's not something that I had known earlier. But let's say it's something, if you want to do earlier and you want to be more industry fit when you go for an interview, I would suggest that you read about how the operations work, which are the important elements of the airline. What does aircraft leasing means? What are there are a lot of technical aspects that you come across, and it's not easy to understand. I'm not saying that, but at least read. Reading gives you, it gives you an option to understand what are the nuances about this industry, because we think that aviation is about, okay, flight, it's just about operating a flight. No, it's not just about operating the flights. It's about a lot of things. What goes behind operating of that flight, you need to understand those things. How the fleet operations work. Why is it important to maintain your fleet, keep it properly repaired? Just like you maintain your car. For example, if you have a car, you have to send your car for regular services. Okay, you have to ensure that this is properly working. In the same manner, you have to manage your aircraft. You have to ensure that it's properly working. All its systems are in place. There are no issues with that, because safety is again a very, very important element of the industry. So my suggestion to the people who are looking forward to join aviation and want to gain any sort of understanding of how this system works or this industry works, please read about it. That's the best way of doing it. Just read. There is so much material these days. Back in my time, there was still material, but we were not so much open, or I say educated about that there is something called aviation. At least I wasn't. I did not know anything about aviation until I went for an interview with AirAsia. That was the first when I read about it. So, but currently, that's why students are extremely open-minded. You have different, all sort of data online. So just read about it and try and understand about how the operations work. So yeah, so I was saying that just read and try and understand how this airline systems really work, and that's about it. Laws and rules and regulations, it's good to read about them. Maybe the better that you read conventions so that you understand how international airline operations happen, because eventually that is the plan, that all the airlines want to eventually operate on international sectors, because that is where you make money. Till the time you're domestic, the competition is highly cutthroat. So understanding about the conventions, why were they signed, how were they signed, what all does it include, that is an interesting exercise too.
But considering this to be a technical subject, I'm sure they won't be able to understand this in a one go unless they experience it or have a practical experience.
Exactly. That's true. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that you'll not understand everything, but try and just get some experience understand about what are the important elements of that. So if you decide to get into this field, eventually you will understand about the technical aspect. And frankly speaking, there's not something they can understand. There's certain things. This is one industry where learning is always ongoing. You will never be able to say that, okay, now after 5 years I've learned everything. After 10 years, people who have been working for 40 years, they also said, there are something that you're still learning.
Because there will be new rules, regulations, it will be coming up and you'll have to read it.
Also, there are so many aspects to that, so many technical elements to that, so many operational elements to that you cannot cover anything in totality ever. So this industry will never bore you. In what sense? You can say, while people may say that okay, after some point your work is really monotonous because you've been working on the same line of things, but that doesn't happen. Somehow, at least 5 years, it hasn't happened with me that I have felt monotonous with my work. There's something or the other that keeps happening. Maybe, I mean, I can't say for airlines, but for me, there is something or the other keeps happening. Even the work gets boring for, let's say, 2-3 months, another 5th month, you find something that will make sure that okay, now you're working on you're on your feet and you're working on it like 24/7, and you're ensuring that okay, this is something that you get exposure to and understand. So it's a very interesting industry to work in. You will get amazing exposure to, as a saying, you'll get exposure to almost so many sectors within the corporates that there are there. You'll get exposure to IT, you'll exposure to catering, you'll exposure to leasing and licensing. There's so many elements to it that there is no dearth of learning in this industry. But it takes time, just like probably any industry. It will take time, and it is more technical, I would say, than maybe the real estate or maybe the IT. It is slightly more technical in nature. So, yes, you have to give some time to this in order to stay and grow in this organization, in this not organization, but in this industry. I have met people who are here who have been associated with aviation industry from one airline to another for 15-20 years, and they still say there's something that they are learning even today. Yes. So that's the best part about this, and that's the suggestion, or that's the advice that I want to give, that read about the industry. Just read and understand how it works, and read about the conventions. Other things you will learn on board when you get a job: contract negotiation, consumer litigation. All of those things are part of the job. You will grow and you will learn. Right. But what you'll not learn, if you do not want to learn, is the operations, and until you do not understand how a particular organization or
and that would be technical.
Exactly, doesn't work, how till the time you do not understand its operation and basis of it, then you will have a difficulty in sustaining them. So just try and understand. Be open to learning.
So one more thing, all the services which you have mentioned, for all those, there is only one legal department, or there are different legal departments for all these services?
There's one legal department.
One legal department. Okay. So that's it, ma'am. Thank you for sharing such a valuable information. So thank you once again. And it was a wonderful conversation with you. I hope all the insights which you have shared would be beneficial for those who are planning to explore this aviation sector.
Definitely. I hope so. I hope so too.
Yes, you have actually shared a lot of information. Trust me.
That's my pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Surbhi. Thank you.